By the time I get my camera set, I can't even remember what I was going to talk about. You won't believe it, but I got up at 10:30 this morning. I was sleeping pretty good, and it felt really good, but you see, it's one of those gloomy, dull, rainy mornings. The kind of morning that you'd rather just stay in bed if you could. Well, first of all, you're going to see me flipping with my hearing aid, trying to get it set, because I think I've got an ear infection in this ear, so I went straight from the bed to the telephone, and I called my doctor's office, whose number I have memorized quite well. You know, I don't have to grab look on the internet or grab a business card or as such to find the number. I know it well. So I've got an appointment to see my doctor tomorrow. I'm hoping everything is okay until then, and I'm trying to keep my hands away from my ears. So I'm using one hearing aid, and sometimes it works, sometimes it goes, ugh, you know. If you wear hearing aids, I don't have to describe all this to you. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So, anyway, the rain and the gloom, what am I going to do today? Now, I'm not one of those people that I like to clean house on dark and gloomy days. Not me. I'd rather sleep or grab a book, pile up on the couch and read. I'm not much for watching TV during the day. I don't even turn the television on. There's nothing on the television screen I want to watch unless I happen to program one of my videos and I can watch it on TV. I don't do that very often because when I look at that big screen and I see me full size, it kind of scares me a little bit, and I think, oh my gosh, I can't sit here and watch myself. So I just turn off the TV and I watch myself on my iPad, where the picture is a lot smaller and you don't see all of my flaws. Well, I'm sitting there reading my messages, getting a lot of good messages. And one thing I want to explain to you, on the last video I showed you, it was a little short one about the trip to Lancaster, Pennsylvania with Jan and Billy and Nina. You seem to take that video as having been a current event. That was a year ago, October in 1923. That's when we went to Pennsylvania. So this is what you're viewing on that video is a year old. And many of you are wishing me pleasant trip, have fun, do this, do that. Well, that was a year ago, so hopefully I can take your information, your advice, and one of these days I'll go back to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, because we had a good time there. It's beautiful country, beautiful. And we didn't get to see near enough. So anyway, I wanted to explain that to you, that I didn't just get back from Lancaster. I've been home a year now. Okay. I thought, when I sit and talk to myself, I can think up things I could do. Oh, I can tell a story about this and about that, and I have to grab my pencil and write it down, because if I don't, in 5 minutes, I don't remember what it was I was going to talk about. I've got a little notepad. I tear the pages out. And this one I'm saying, let's see what I'm telling myself, talk about the summer bedspread. And talk about making beds on Saturday morning. That's when I was a kid. Had to help Mama on Saturday. And then the next one is talk about the Burma shave signs. If you're my age, you remember the Burma shave sign, but if you're under 70 years old, you may not recall them because they disappeared from the highways. This one says, get this, cow on the road on hairpin curves. Now, wouldn't that make you wonder, what in the world is she talking about? What kind of story is she going to tell about a cow on the road on hairpin curve? Well, that's coming later. And I may have already told it once, but, the story varies a little here and there when you when you tell it different times. You forget this and you remember that. So those are the kind of notes that I write for myself. Now, I'm in the bedroom. I don't know what I was looking for because there's a lot of stuff in my bedroom that's not organized. And I looked over at the dresser and I said, uh-oh, there was the big clear plastic envelope. This is what I'm going to talk about today. Now, this may look backwards to you. I think it does. But these are my report cards. 12 years of report cards from the 1st to the 12th grade. I thought you might be interested in some of them. Now, the very first one, and I may be using my magnifying glass or my flashlight because the print is very dim and the lighting is not good here, and I may have to use those to see the writing. This report card is dated 1943. 1943. The war was going on. Oh, yes. It was the spring of 1943. Daddy had just gotten a job in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where they were building the atomic bomb. He had been out of work for so long, and he finally got a job. He was going to be supervising the building of houses and dormitories in Oak Ridge, thousands of them. In fact, I think they built about 30,000 altogether. We were going to be moving to Clinton, Tennessee. Clinton, Tennessee bordered Oak Ridge, 11 miles along the river. You follow the river, you'd take you right into Oak Ridge, where the atomic bomb was being built. Or they called it the Manhattan Project. If you're my age, you remember a lot of these things I'm talking about. Otherwise, you listen and learn a little bit about your American history. This report card is for 2 months from April to May in 1943. I was finishing the 1st grade. Oh, what a traumatic time that was for me and 3 of my sisters. We were having to leave home, drop out of class, and go to a new school in another state. only 2 months left in the year, and we had to change schools. Now, you know what that's like. You know, if you ever had to move from one town to another during a school year, you know how it affected you as a child. You weren't going to know anybody there. You just didn't know if you could handle it or not. 2 months. This report card covers that 2 months of 1943. And it says on the back, it says promoted to 2nd grade. I got to finish 2 months of the 1st grade in Clinton, Tennessee. And I want to show you the signature. You know, the parent had to sign the report card every 6 weeks and bring it back to school to the teacher, showing that the parent had read the report card and it was satisfactory with them. This is backwards. I wish it was so you could see it correct. I wanted you to see the signature of my mother. My mother went to the 6th grade. That was as far as she got to go in school. And when I look at her handwriting, I can't help but see a hint of the old English handwriting. Her father kept a grocery ledger which had a lot of handwriting in it. And you could see his handwriting was in the old English print. Take a look at this. This is my mother, 6th grade. Let's see which way it won't go. This is backwards. But you can see that she carried the old English handwriting, and I always loved that, especially knowing that she only went to the 6th grade. Now this is the front. This is the front of my, let me get that straight. I want you to see it straight. This is from Clinton City Schools. You can't see the handwriting hardly at all, but this is what's on the front. Now inside, you're only going to see a partial year of my grades. See, there are just 2 sections in my grades because we were there for April and May of 1943. And this indicates that I was promoted from the 1st to the 2nd grade. Now, my teacher, I remember her well. Her name was Mossy King. The name fit her well. In fact, I was scared of Mossy King. Well, I was a shy child anyway, not exposed to much social life. And I was afraid. But Mossy King reminded me of the Wicked Witch of the West. The witch in the movie with Judy Garland. You know the whole story. She looked like the Wicked Witch of the West, and I was scared of Mossy King. Now, lo and behold, we go through the summer months, and guess what? Guess who my teacher was in the 2nd grade? Mossy King. Again, I'm going to see if there's anything here with my flashlight. Let's go inside. And In those days, you didn't get A, B, and C. The very first entry has an I, and I'm beginning to think that meant insufficient. The next 6 weeks was an S for satisfactory, and then the average was S minus. After that, it dropped down, and the subjects were writing, music, I don't know what kind of music we had in the second grade, health, reading, spelling, art, let's see, deportment. I think that means conduct. I got all E's. E's was excellent. That meant I made good grades. It shows how many days I was absent. 5 days. That was for, let's see, I don't know what period it was. But anyway, that was the second grade. Now, the third grade, I was promoted to the third grade. My teacher was Bess Slemons, rhymes with lemons. She was tall, slender, very pretty lady. I loved her as a school teacher. Her father was a local doctor. In fact, I think he became our family doctor. Now, this is the third grade. The third grade, oh my gosh, let's see what grades I made. Wow, straight A student, get that. Well, who could do better than that? Same subjects, back then you had the 3 R's. And there was arithmetic, writing, grammar, geography, music, health, reading, spelling, art, deportment. Now let's see. Days absent, 5. Pretty good record there for the third grade. The third grade was the year the high school had a big variety show for Christmas. And I may have told you the story, and I don't want to go into detail on this story. But every class from the 1st to the 12th grade gave a performance in that variety show during December. It was such a sad, sad time. All of the soldiers overseas, all those that had already lost their lives, the families working in Oak Ridge, trying to get by in rental homes. They were living in tents. They were living in trailers. The men that came without their families would live in boarding houses, anything, any place where they could have a roof over their head at night, and small cafes where they could eat their breakfast. The little cafe up the street from us, my 2 sisters worked there after school, and they would pack lunches for the customers that night, and when they came by in the morning to eat breakfast, they picked up their lunch bag to take with them to work in Oak Ridge. And then after work, they returned to the restaurant for supper. That's when they gave the order for their lunch the next day. My 2 sisters helped prepare many, many brown bag lunches for these workers. Now, we got through the 3rd grade. Let's see what we have. 1945, fourth grade. By this time, the war had ended. It was 1945. The family moved back to Corbin. All of us kids were back in our home school. Frida Trosper, she was a good teacher. I remember her well, and I liked her. And there's something I can tell you about her through the years. Now, you think how old I am now. I was, I'm going to say, I don't remember how old I was when Mama was in the nursing home. But that was in 1997. I'm going through the nursing home, just looking in on the patient and the resident that were there when I would visit Mama on the weekends. And I came by a doorway, and on the door it had the name Frida Trosper. Oh my goodness. She was my fourth grade teacher. Frida Trosper would never have been able to remember me. Such a memory. She was such a good teacher. And now she was residing her last days in the nursing home. We go to the fifth grade. Lucy Terrell was my teacher. Lucy Terrell had black hair, long black hair, and she parted it in the middle and braided it across her head. That's how she wore her hair every day to school. She was heavy set. She had the prettiest handwriting I'd ever seen, and I wanted to learn to write just like she did, in script. And so I practiced every day. I went from the fifth grade to the sixth grade. Lucy Terrell again was my teacher. I was in all of the spelling bees. I was a good speller. I almost won one spelling bee, and I'm embarrassed to tell you that I lost out on the final day on the simplest word you could ever be given to spell. It hurt me so bad because when you finish spelling the word and realize you spelled a letter wrong, you can't go back and change it. You completed spelling. I was given the word address. Anybody can spell address. And I hurriedly went through the word ADRESS. Oh no. The teacher looked at me. He was so sympathetic because he knew I knew how to spell address, but I finished it and left out one D. I lost the spelling bee that year. Heartbreaking, really heartbreaking for a sixth grader. So we go on from there. I'm in the seventh grade. Now I am in junior high school. They call it middle school now. I'm looking to see Boyd Roberts was my homeroom teacher. The one thing I learned from him was an appreciation of music. he had a little record player he kept in the classroom. And he played 78 RPM records. Oh, shoot. Why do I have to forget the name of a song just when I want to say it? But he taught us a little bit about classical and semi-classical music. We weren't listening to this corny, what they call Western country music today. There's nothing country about the music today. I can't even stomach to listen to it. Sorry about that, but that's just my opinion of today's country music. Now, you talk about the old country music stars, that's a different story. They were true country singers. But Boyd Roberts, he made us listen to semi-classical music, and he made us learn to sing it. That scared the living daylights out of me because I was embarrassed to tears. I knew I wasn't a good singer. I was average, but I was too self-conscious. I made good grades in that class. I'm looking to see. It doesn't even show anything about music. But I got promoted from the 7th grade to the 8th grade. Now, I know you're enjoying all of these report cards, but keep in mind how many of you have all 12 of your report cards from the 1st through the 12th grade. I am amazed that the day I reached down in the top drawer of my dresser, you know, you put away things in a dresser and you leave them there for years and you forget about having them. My report cards were in the very back of the top drawer of my dresser, right in the bottom. And one day, it was a few months ago, in searching for something else, I felt this plastic jiffy bag. What in the world is this? And I pulled it out. And there were my report cards. This one is the 8th grade. I made pretty good grades, but I didn't make good grades in history. I didn't like history. History to me was learning who all the presidents were, learning all the states, learning the governors, learning the dates of the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, World War II, on and on. That's what history was for me. And you had to read paragraph after paragraph. Each student had to read a paragraph. Most boring class in the world. So I made the first 6 months of the year, or I should say 4 months of the year, I made C, B, and C. And then after that, in the end of the year, I made C, B, and a D. That tells you I didn't like history. There was so much more to history than what we were getting out of our books. I'm in the 9th grade now. Oh gosh, what a change that was. I'm in high school. You know what it was like your first week of high school with all those sophomores, juniors, and seniors looking at you like, yeah, that's the way they looked at the freshmen. So, my grades there, average. I wasn't trying to be a valedictorian. I wanted to be a good student, but I didn't want it bad enough to work for it. I did my homework like I was supposed to do at home at night and prepared for tests, but I still didn't like all of my classes. Now, this may surprise you. I made A's in English. I made A's in algebra. A's and B's in science. And guess which class I took that had the lowest grades? Home economics. Home economics. We were learning to sew. Well, I was already learning to sew because Mom had taught me a lot. But my home ec teacher was more concerned with her own personal sewing. She had a little girl, and she would sit at the sewing machine over by the window, and she'd made sure we were making blouses, and we all had our patterns, and instead of helping us what to do, she sat over against the window and sewed, making clothes for her daughter. And we girls would get together and decide which piece to put where and how to sew the seams and that sort of thing and where to cut. I made B's and C's in that class, and I decided then and there I didn't want to take home economics anymore because I'd have the same teacher, and I was not learning anything from her. I could learn more from my mother. So that was the end of home economics, 9th grade. I hope you're enjoying this trail through life as a kid. We're already to the 10th grade, and I'm sure you're glad we gotten that far. I'm up to English, biology, typing 1, and world history. Again, blah for the history. Worthless. But I wanted to learn to type. I was good. I think we used the Royal typewriters. And I remember the day I was typing. Now, my typing teacher name was May Brown. Picture May Brown in your mind. You might want to go back to Mayberry RFD with Andy Griffith and Barney Fife when you picture May Brown. She had the flattest, countryest drawl you ever heard. She was total country. But I'm typing whatever it was we had to type, get so many words per minute, that sort of thing. And I'm typing, and my arms, while I'm typing like this. You see my arms are raised. My arms should have been down to my side, and I should have been typing like this. But not me. I'm typing like this, because that's the way my hand formed. And she stopped at my desk and stopped the whole class to point out, look at her arms stuck out to her side. That's not the way you type. Oh my God. I was 15, 16 years old. She was embarrassing me to death. May Brown, my typing teacher. I never liked her after that, but I was still good in typing. I wasn't the fastest, but I was accurate. Give myself a little bit of credit there. Number 11, I'm a junior in high school. Whoa, time is going by fast. My homeroom teacher, everybody had a homeroom teacher every year, and this one was Miss Morgan. Miss Morgan was the librarian. So I spent my first class in the morning in the library with Miss Morgan. It wasn't a class, it was a study hall. So what did I do? If I'd had homework from the night before that I didn't finish, I could use that study hall period to finish my homework. That worked out great because usually, at home when you've got the homework, you say, oh, I don't feel like doing it. I'm not going to do my homework tonight. It worked out well for me because I could finish my homework the next morning in study hall. That year I took English 2, geometry, typing 2, and shorthand. I was good in English. I made good grades in geometry. Typing 2, A's and B's, and shorthand, I made straight A's. There was just one little problem with shorthand. I was left-handed. I wrote upside down. You don't have a natural flow of shorthand when you're having to write it upside down. And if you're writing from a notebook that has a spiral ring, that ring gets in your way and you can't get the flow of your work. I didn't do too well in shorthand, partly because I only took the first year, and you need 2 years of shorthand before you can actually transcribe it. So that was a waste of time. Now, number 12. I'm a senior in high school. Oh boy, oh boy. I was popular, very popular in high school. I was one of the charter members of the Duchess Club. We had a Dukes and Duchess Club, and I think there were 12 members in each one. But the charter members were chosen by the year ahead of you. When they were finishing out their year in the Duchess Club, they had to pick 5 or 6 charter members from the junior class to follow them. They would be in the lead. I don't know how it happened. I didn't even know the girls in the senior class knew who I was, but I became one of the charter members of the Duchess Club. So, my grades, oh, this is funny. I still was in English and literature. Miss Pope was probably one of the best English and literature teachers, especially she loved literature. She loved Shakespeare. I couldn't have cared less about Shakespeare. Wasn't the least bit interested in him. But that was her favorite subject. And of course we had to give book reports every 6 weeks. I had a friend, my best friend. She read books all the time. I didn't have time to read. I like crafts. I like doing other things. So when it came time, you had to give an oral book report. What was I going to do? I hadn't even read a book that 6 weeks. My girlfriend would tell me the story of a book she had just finished, And she'd say, now you go to the library, check out that book, get all the names of the characters, when the book was published, and who the author was, and you've got your book report. And that's exactly what I did every 6 weeks. She told me a story, and I got up and repeated the story she told me. That was my book report as a senior in high school. I took public speaking, a class in public speaking. Who in the world ever thought I could get up and be a public speaker? Well, I knew I couldn't, but my teacher was the junior high school principal. He was tall, slender, bright red hair, wore wire rim glasses, and he was tough. I was scared of that man. But something I learned about him, and anyone from my high school classes will agree with me, he loved to tell jokes. He couldn't tell jokes. He never told anything funny. And I had one friend, she's one of these girls that when she smiled, her smile went all the way across her face. And when she laughed, you could hear her in the next classroom. She was a happy girl. She laughed a lot. And wouldn't you know, every time Mr. Rogers told a joke, the rest of us looked at him, and she burst out laughing, had that big smile on her face. Well, you know good and well who his favorite pupil was. She was his favorite pupil. Well, as a senior taking journalism, I also, second semester, if you're getting bored, just turn me off. Okay. Second semester, guess what I was taking? Class in dramatics. But first I want to go back to the public speaking. Every week we had to write an article or a story about certain subjects. It wasn't so bad when he chose the subjects for us, but when we had to pick our own subject, I thought, what in the world can I write about? I've never been anywhere. I've never done anything. My dad is not an important man around town. We don't belong to any clubs. I don't belong to any organizations. I haven't been 50 miles away from home in my life. What can I write stories about? I couldn't come up with anything. So this time I had to pick the subject. I was in my English class, first class with Miss Pope, and sitting there waiting for her to come to class. And the girl behind me was also in the public speaking class. And she was a smart girl. I showed her the article that I had written, and she began telling me what I should change. You should change this. I wouldn't say that. I'd put it this way and this, that. So I did just exactly what she said. I read it over and I got to thinking, I'm not going to write this the way she told me to. This is my article. And I don't agree with what she said, so I went back to my original article. And I said, this is the one I'm going to use. I'm not going to write the article like she told me. When I got up and I read my article to the class, Mr. Rogers gave me an A+. I was right in sticking with my own thoughts instead of someone else's. So I was thrilled. I became one of Mr. Rogers' favorite pupils. I learned how to laugh at everything he said. You know, you've seen these people who can really give that fake laugh. Would you believe I learned how to do that? And I could laugh at anything he said. No wonder I became one of his favorite pupils. I just about took the place of my friend. Okay, dramatics. The senior class has a play every year. The end of the senior year, we gave a play. You had to try out for that play. I tried out. I found the role, the character. I knew I could do this character. I knew real well I should get that part. Well, after I tried out, I did not get the part. I was very disappointed. But Mr. Rogers told me, he said, it's not because you were not good in the part, because you were. But your voice does not carry. Your voice will not carry out into the audience so that they can hear what you're saying. So I had to give it to someone else, the part to someone else. But since I'm the director of the play, I want you to be my assistant director. That's quite a compliment, I thought. This little old girl, I'm going to work with all of the actors in the play and help direct them. So I was the assistant director of the play. Now, I've always remembered him for that. And he took an interest in me, in my future. And I would go in, after class, I could go into his office and talk to him. I had been so afraid of that man all those years through my junior high and senior high years. I was afraid of him, and all of a sudden, he had become one of my best mentors. I've always remembered him for that. So I finished my senior year. I made good grades in, I was in journalism. Had a journalism class. We put out the school newspaper. And I didn't work on the newspaper, but now and then you helped with the typing and things like that. So I loved 17 magazine. I think they still put it out, I'm not sure. But young girls then, they were into style and pretty clothes. And a 17 magazine was perfect for a high school senior. I loved looking at the clothes and reading the articles. So one day, I was reading an article that was telling about the color for the spring season was blue. I read that article. Well, journalism class had to write something. What am I going to write about? Okay, that's what I'll write about. Fashions for this year. And I talked about what I had read in the magazine. I talked about the color blue was going to be the new color for spring. I turned it in. The article went into our school newspaper. Now, every school newspaper was submitted to a regional office, and the regional office would pick articles from all of these newspapers, and they would post their own newspaper, and it went out to all of the schools. Little did I know that my fashion article had been chosen for the regional newspaper. And when my teacher, my journalism teacher, Miss Chestnut, she showed it to me, I was thrilled. I never dreamed I would get that much attention. I never kept a copy of that newspaper. I wish I had. But I couldn't believe that something I had written would go that far and create that much interest. So now you've heard all about my education. 12 years of Pat in school. I was popular, but not the most popular. I was usually included. I was nominated for Miss CHS. I was nominated for Football Queen. I was nominated for Basketball Queen. And I was nominated for the Duchess Club Queen. Guess where I came in? Runner-up, 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 runner-up. Never was the winner. But that's okay. I got my picture in the school, our annual, the annual each year. There would be a picture of the Queen and her court, and I got to be in the picture because I was one of the girls nominated for the court. So you see, that's the story of my life up through the age of 18. Life changed then, and now and then I'll give you an update on my adult life. I can't say it was very exciting, but now and then there's a little story to tell that puts you in the history books. And I know you have been bored to tears with this story, but you want me to talk about myself. You want me to tell you about my childhood, and that's what I'm doing. It's not an exciting life. Average, small town life is what it was. You didn't hear of any records been set by any of us. And we could always go back every 5 years to our class reunions and be brought up to date on what we used to do. And I'll never forget meeting one of my friends on the street. It was probably the 40th class reunion, and I ran into my friend. He had his wife with him, and we were talking about when we were in the 6th grade. And he looked at me and he said, I hated, this would have been in the 5th grade, because I was in the spelling bees every year. And he said, I never forgave you for beating me out in the spelling bee. And I didn't even remember it, but he remembered it. He said, I hated you after that because you won the spelling bee and I was runner-up. So he's a terrific fellow. He made good grades in school, and I always loved him. So that's my story for today. It'll keep you busy or it'll keep you asleep. It'll put you to sleep. And if it puts you to sleep, that's okay. You probably needed a nap anyway. So I'm going on, and I've got 2 or 3 more things listed, and in the next few days I'll have another story for you. But keep in mind, I'm not in Lancaster, Pennsylvania this week. I wasn't there last week. I was there a year ago when you start reading that story. Thank you for watching me, and you don't know how much I appreciate you staying with me, reading my stories, and paying me such wonderful compliments. It's the best thing that can happen to me now. I'm 88 years old, and just any kind of compliment is wonderful. But the kind I'm getting today, I never dreamed this would happen to me. And it's all because of you, and you following me along and listening to my hubbub of old stories. But I suppose you've got the same kind of stories to tell too, and you should be telling them. You really should be telling these stories, because if you're interested in mine, I'll be interested in yours. Talk to you later. Have a good day. And it's still raining outside, and I'm hoping tomorrow the sun will come out, and I'm sure it will. Bye-bye.